Good morning, world. Hope you're doing well. So, I've got an interesting discussion today around the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, as many of you know, that's the 300 plus US billion-dollar fund to bring on the green transition, onshoring to the United States. One of the signature bills under President Biden. However, this has caused a few ripples around the world, not least among certain friends, especially the European Union and United Kingdom, of course, as well, and other countries. Let's take, for example, recent announcements. Volkswagen, they've claimed that if they go out and build out factories in the United States, they could claim up to 10 billion US dollars in subsidies. I mean, fantastic for them. Northvolt, I think this is Sweden, they're announcing or looking to now build their next factory or their investment in the United States. Arrival's EV company has also announced that its preference for its next investment is the United States. So, and I'm quite sure that this is not what the European Union and other countries were looking for, because they also are interested in onshoring. They're also interested in driving the green transition and green employment and energy security and economic growth in their own markets as well. So, as perhaps could be expected, the EU strikes back. And they've pretty much announced that they're willing to allow member states the freedom and flexibility to match subsidies that are available in the United States. And this gives rise to the predictable beggar thy neighbor trade policies that we studied in textbooks, economics, where one state, one country or bloc tries to outdo the other simply with the same kind of policies. So we have a subsidy tension. I won't call it conflict, but let's call it tension ongoing. What is the effect of that on investment? I mean, the IRA, obviously fantastic for companies looking to invest in the US, but now with the EU confirming that it's willing to match, all in all, this is fantastic news for investors in the EV industry and the service sectors and supply chains surrounding that EV industry and batteries, etc. So some companies I've already mentioned before, I believe this is very positive for. The recent example is Vulcan Energy Resources, it's a lithium producer. Or planned lithium producer in Germany. So from that perspective, long term, as I've said previously, it's almost business as usual. There's no way any region anywhere in the world is going to give up its share, its portion, its ambitions, whether it's with respect to the raw materials, whether it's with respect to production, refining, design, assembly of electric vehicles. Now, what this has also enables us to do is let's analyze the relationship between the US and EU long term. I mean, it's very clear that Biden's key advisor on this IRA, John Podesta, has firmly said, look, we make no apologies for this, because we have to understand that from the US perspective in particular, this is more than just a subsidies mechanism, and this is about geostrategic security. This is about onshoring. This is about global market share for an emerging technology where perhaps the US is slightly behind China. So from that perspective, I don't think we're going to see the US give an inch, personally. Although talks are planned in terms of how the EU and US can mutually benefit, especially with respect to the supply chain for raw materials and critical minerals, and perhaps to help reduce some tension around that. But still, I'm quite convinced, regardless of what the EU tries to do or what concessions it tries to get, the US has made its decision, has its position, and will continue to drive forwards. For investors, I said again, I think it's great news all round. There is now a contest to drive the energy transition, electrification of transport, onshore and control supply chains and refining and raw materials. Fantastic for investors, in my view. So we continue to push forwards. What's also fascinating is BYD, the big Chinese EV/battery company, which also has an investment or ownership from Berkshire Hathaway, has stated that by 2030 it wants 10% of the EU electric vehicle market. It's already shortlisting countries and places to invest its next plant or build its next plant. And that's also an interesting geopolitical twerk. And that is that although the EU is also looking to shore up its own supply chains and investment, there is clearly tension with the US, but the EU still has this optionality with China. Therefore, I don't think we are going to see anything as strict on this segment coming from the EU vis-a-vis China as we may see with the United States. But also remember, Teslas and others, they're being manufactured and built in China. Mercedes, Volkswagen, it's a huge market. So keeping that in mind. But it is positive. It is positive that the EU is looking to defend its position. The US is driving forward with its position. China is looking to invest big time in the European Union. This will all require raw materials, critical minerals, refining, processing, production. So fantastic opportunities. In my next production, I'm going to look to go into some other companies that I've invested in, EU focused again. We've looked at lithium these last few weeks, but obviously there are other key materials that we need to focus on as well, like manganese, as one example. Graphite is another example, but that's coming for the future. In the meantime, I still remain very positive about the progress in the EV market. These acts were predictable. The market in general, long term, is still predictable. Economic growth, stability, eventually will return to the markets. As I said in my last call, employment here, there, and everywhere, inflation here, there, and everywhere. I think what we're seeing is the market's being driven by almost week-to-week data or week-to-week snippets. And at the same time, because of a lot of automation in trades, you see very, very fast reactions to markets. Very fast down, very fast up. But I think, again, we look at the direction the world is taking. We look at the key markets. We look at the entire thematic of the energy transition, the electrification of transport, the need for critical minerals, and it's only going in one direction. All right, so stay safe, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.